won 2, lost 10, and tied 3. The Blues are 2-8 and 4. Mr. Parkin, if you get out of the way here, we're on the air. Thank you. It was a mixed bag for area high school team.
The standardbred is a remarkable animal. He'll race maybe once a week, maybe 50 times a year. Much different than the thoroughbred. You dog. Come here. Come back over here.
So this week, Jay Randolph and Ron Jacober were inducted into the KSDK Hall of Fame. Senior producer Andy Moeller has more on these legendary sportscasters.
Don't they remember they fired me?
For 35 combined years, 16 of them side by side.
You know, it's become a tradition in St. Louis for Ron and I.
Jay Randolph and Ron Jacober manned the sports desk at KSD and KSDK TV. It was a much different industry back then, but many still remember.
There was a guy who came up to me 2 weeks ago. He said, I watch you every night. I said, you haven't for 30 years.
In the high school mid-states tournament, Afton beat McClure North 5-4 in overtime.
2-run homers by Hank Aaron and Darrell Evans helped lead the Braves to an 11-6 victory over the Cardinals tonight.
Now, he's listed in critical condition in the hospital. They say he's conscious but unable to talk.
I think I looked at myself more as a journalist who tried to report the news like any other news reporter rather than being a cheerleader. I realize that's being pretty critical. Maybe I'm just old, okay? But that's how I feel about it.
Behind me you see the newly refurbished arena, the home of the Blues.
Randolph came to KSD in 1968 after 2 years at KMOX Radio.
We've had a lot of dead batteries today with people actually driving in traffic.
Jacober got his start in public relations with AAA, followed by his own stint at the Mighty Mocs. Stylistically, local sports was reported unlike what we see today. And then there was the production itself.
Well, early on we were shooting film, so you might not have any highlights, but you had to use that film to show you were there. And even doing some commercials live.
This is a demonstration model of new automatic Bank 24.
The pair broke their fair share of stories in St. Louis. Memorably, Ron found the legendary Harry Carey on the day he was fired by the Cardinals.
You would think there'd be a little bit of a personal touch. I am really hurt about it.
It was such a huge story. He was so popular, and everybody talked about it for days and days and days.
For Jay, there was the news of former Big Red owners Bill and Stormy Bidwell splitting up their partnership of the team.
I just felt that I wasn't getting it done.
And years later, breaking the resignation of Whitey Herzog as Cardinals manager. As far as memorable stories, Ron interviewed an impressive array of stars.
The acquisition of Wills and Manny Moda now.
I was going to ask you about that trade. You think it's a good one?
Definitely. I think it's a great trade.
You know that's an old line. You used that the other day.
You got old line, but it works out fine.
He especially remembers conversations with the great Muhammad Ali, who often visited St. Louis and called Jacober the local Howard Cosell. If that meant he was a good straight man for the champ's wit, so be it.
You think you're really as fast as you used to be?
Am I fast? So fast, hit you before God get the news.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, there was the tragic plane crash in 1980 that killed 22 members of the U.S. boxing team, including local fighter Lemuel Steeples. Jacober's grim assignment that day? Interview the young fighter's mother.
Walked in the house, and she was like nothing ever happened. And then she was telling me about a dream she had overnight.
His face looked real like he had on this white stuff like clown, on the face. I began to pray. I said, now, Lord, what does this mean? I just said, whatever it is, if it's my family, give me power to stand.
I got chills listening to this woman. It was the most difficult interview I've ever done.
Pleasant good evening, everybody, from Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia.
For Jay, his duties included live events, the Cardinals for Channel 5, and multiple sports for NBC.
When you do play-by-play, you don't know what's coming next. I did a football game with Bob Greasy in Boston.
He just drove out onto the field, made the spot.
A guy who was on loan from the nearby prison jumped on a tractor with a brush on it.
On the way, I know you saw the opening ceremony.
While Jay was spanning the globe for the network, that left Ron to man the desk here at home.
Over the past few years, we've interviewed scores of people for you on these dugout shows.
I was negotiating a contract with the general manager, and I looked up to see how many newscasts I did that year. It was over 500.
What would have happened if Ron Jacober hadn't become a sportscaster on Channel 5?
Detective Jacober reporting in with highlights of today's action. Draw!
But for viewers of a certain age, they were a tandem. Jay and Ron, Ron and Jay. They spent as much time in people's living rooms as the televisions themselves. Their careers went on long after they left Channel 5. But this is the legacy these two pioneers would like to leave behind.
He played it pretty straight. He was a pretty good journalist. He was a pretty good writer, and he was honest.
I was always thinking about the listeners. It made me feel good when someone would come up to me and say, I listened to you say this.
Wonder if we'll be here 10 years from now, Ron.
I hope not.
I hope not.
Thanks for being with us.
For Sports Plus, I'm Andy Moeller.